Let's talk. Let's talk about veteran disability claims and veteran disability benefits. It is a hot topic. No lukewarm opinions about it, as is typical. And it's an important one. It is oft contested and argued about among veterans, people who have that benefit available to them or could potentially have that benefit available to them. First things first, you should absolutely, every single person in the military or formerly in the military should do a claim, a disability benefits claim. Whether you feel like you are broken or you have reduced function or anything right now or not, you absolutely need to make that claim, because it could be determined down the road that you have hearing loss due to artillery. And well, you made a hearing loss claim. It was rated at 0%, but they did service connect you 20 years ago. That's easier to substantiate. So even if you don't think you're injured right now or have reduced function, every veteran, every military member needs to file that claim on their way out the door or after. Start the process before you need it. Because if you start the process when you need it, your help, the help that you are owed and could need and deserve, could be greatly delayed, because it is not a quick process. For those of you out there who feel like, I shouldn't claim my VA benefits. I'm a tough guy. I don't need a handout. Are you kidding me? Imagine having car insurance and paying into car insurance. And the deal is, if you get in a car accident, you're covered. Your expenses are covered. And then you get in a car accident and you're like, I don't need a handout. I'm going to pay straight cash for that. Would you honestly do that? Nobody would do that. That doesn't even make sense. And look, those benefits were part of the deal. I've said it before, and I will say it again. They were part of the deal. You made a commitment to the Department of Defense and to your country. You made a selfless commitment. But they also made a commitment to you. They made a promise that if you have any injury or reduction in function or illness or anything like that, that they would take care of you with health benefits at little to no cost, that they would take care of you with monthly compensation. It's part of the deal. It's your car insurance, man. And imagine being able to claim and diagnose and verify an issue with your car before an accident. Easier to substantiate. That's why you should submit the claim now. So to recap this introduction, stop being a tough guy or a tough gal. You need to submit a claim. This is your car insurance policy. Department of Defense made a commitment to you. Whether you think you're broken or not, or injured, or ill, or whatever, do it now. Preferably before you get out of the military, but whatever it is, do it now before you need it, because it's not a quick process. And if you have disability benefits right now, don't feel guilty about that. It's part of the deal. You earn that. And they vet those people thoroughly. Thoroughly, they vet those people. They vet people so thoroughly that sometimes they can be a bit heavy-handed with it. It's a big system, and it is imperfect. And sometimes you will file a claim in this not-so-quick process that you think is an absolute slam dunk, a no-brainer. Like, I literally have one leg. I hope I'll get disability for, missing a leg. This is an extreme example. I'm not sure if this has ever happened. But then it's denied for some reason. It could be so obvious to you, but then the claim is denied. And that happens a lot. Like I said, big machine. They have a lot of people to vet and to go through. A ton. What do you do in that case, in that instance? What is the absolute best way to file a claim in the first place to ensure or to reduce the risk of it getting unceremoniously denied? And if it is denied, what is the best way to continue to fight? Because a lot of people turn around and walk away. And they shouldn't turn around and walk away at that point, especially if you know in your heart of hearts that that is something, an injury or an illness that happened upon you while you were in service or in the line of duty. It's worth fighting for. So the answer to both of those questions, you're not even going to have to listen to me to get the answer to both of those questions. My good buddy, Jim Brzezinski, is an absolute rock star. There are few people on planet Earth who know more about this than this guy. And he's here today. He's signed on. I can see him right there. He's sitting in his car. Hi, Jim. I appreciate you, my man. He's going to talk about all of this. He used to work on the other end of things. He used to work on the VA side. And now he works as an advocate for folks to get them what they've been promised and were denied. And he's dang good at it. He's stinking good. My friend, Jim Brzezinski. What's up, dude?
Hi there, Adam. Thank you for the introduction. And I always like listening to, well, the part where you give me praises is always kind of like, I'm like, it kind of sets an expectation, and then I have to try and live up to it. But, I do
And
try
you
my hardest.
do every day.
I try. But listening to how you describe the benefits system and, you know, the slam dunk thing. Oh my gosh, I hear it all the time. And the funny thing, well, not funny, but the thing that happens a lot is people will think that the I guess the strength of your claim affects the process. Meaning, what I mean by that is that, I have people come in and they say, I've got this. It's a slam dunk. They should look at it. It should be, done in 2 weeks because it's so easy.
They'll put it in the no doubter pile.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they are very easy and they do get approved, but it does not affect the time frame. I mean, you're still in the pile with everybody else. You get your number in line, and they work their way through the claims. And the VA not too long ago went to what's called a national work queue, which means that your claim could be worked anywhere in the country, depending on the only thing that depends is who's available at the time that your claim, the number is pulled, basically. So it used to be that your claim would be worked in Milwaukee if you're from Wisconsin, or it'd be worked in St. Pete's if you're from Florida. But now it's a national work queue, so it can be worked anywhere at any time by anyone, which theoretically is good.
Is it better in practice?
It's probably better for the average person because, it's one of those, it's almost like the queue versus the individual lines, right? Like, like you go to the gas station, and some gas stations will have 3 registers and each register's got 5 people in line. Other gas stations will have one big line, and then as a register opens, you go to the next open register.
Right.
Well, so it is generally better, I think. What it really does, though, is it takes away the personalization of your claim. Advocates and the VA, even though I fight them every day and they tick me off to no end, I still feel like we have sort of a partnership at times, right? Like,
Right.
the VA is trying to do something, I'm trying to help them do what they do, and it seems like now that there's a national work queue, it's taken away some of the partnering abilities, because when it was in Milwaukee, I knew the or many offices. I made relationships with people throughout the years, going and doing hearings, and Um,
I think that's an important point. I want to foot stomp that point that you just made, like the partnership with the VA. The VA at the state or federal level, whatever, is not sitting at some large boardroom table surrounded by piles of money, twisting their mustache, going, "Who can we, screw over today?" Like, that's not it. Like, the VA overarchingly exists to and is passionate about getting people what they deserve. It's just a huge machine, and it's hard to it's they don't always get it right. And that's where people like Jim come in. They're not evil
they're not, Adam. Most of them are trying their hardest, and I can speak from experience.
because you used to be on the VA end.
Yes, I worked at the VA prior to and during my first 2 years at law school. I started a part-time night program and was working claims at the VA during the day and heading over to law school at night. So, um, I mean, the people that are there, most of them are veterans themselves,
Mhm.
very passionate about veteran issues. Um, there are occasionally the the people who are kind of like, I'm this disabled and look at this person who's less disabled than me and trying, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think there is sometimes some of that, but for the most part, the system is very, very receptive to veteran issues, and they
Mhm.
really do want to help. But it's a huge, like you said, a huge machine. There's red tape at every corner,
Yeah.
and not just red tape for you. I mean, there's red tape for the people working there who want to do a certain thing, but either they can't because it's not allowed, or even if it is allowed, there's a million steps to get it done, and you just got to keep plugging away. Um, and I tell people this all the time. It's a matter of funding, right? Like,
Mm.
there's just not enough people, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not even funding. Maybe there's just not enough people in the United States to cover all of the jobs that the VA needs.
Right. Right.
I mean, we're seeing that in every aspect of our life right now, where
Mm.
people are understaffed. But one of the things, and I'm not a veteran, I got to throw that out there, but I do
Mhm.
think about this a lot just because I'm in the process so much. But when you hear about when we're sending money or troops or guns or whatever to any sort of conflict, um, you know, nobody ever really talks about the, you'll hear sometimes about the cost of the war,
Yeah.
right? Like the cost, like, we spent $2 billion on defense this year.
Mhm.
Do you ever hear them talk about the cost of keeping these people taken care of after? You never hear about that, right?
No.
It's never figured into the cost of war. Um, but we made a promise, and we have to do it. And I'm 100% feel it's the right thing to do. Um, and from a more kind of, I guess, pragmatic approach, if you start sending people back that are just injured, disabled, whatever, and you don't take care of them, eventually it's going to get out, and nobody's going to sign up for this, right?
Yeah, it's almost like you'll have recruiting and retention issues
Oh
if you
yeah.
don't if people who are leaving the military or have left the military are not saying, "I benefited from this professionally," or "This was a good choice for my career," or "Yeah, the military took care of me like they promised." It's almost like if that's the case, you'll have widespread retention and recruiting issues. Strangest thing. Taking care of
Yeah.
veterans is a force multiplier. Put me in charge,
Yeah.
DOD. Let's do this.
I mean, could you imagine if like one of my employees went to the doctor and they said, "Oh, that health insurance isn't going to work here or anywhere." I
Well, I
mean,
mean, that kind
yeah,
of does
right. No,
happen
that's kind of a
sometimes.
bad example, but let's say, let's say all of the benefits that we provide, and then the person goes to use them and they're like, "Nah, no, you don't qualify. No, no,
Yeah.
not bad enough. Didn't happen. Whatever."
Yeah,
Oh my
you
God.
like, you have dental insurance, and you
Yes.
go to the dentist, and you're like, "I'm missing a tooth." And they're
Yeah.
like, "Well, I see that, but I think you lost the tooth on a Tuesday, which means
Yeah.
that you weren't eligible
Oh yeah,
coverage, and I'm not liable. Yeah.
exactly. You know, and I feel like this conversation, it went a lot longer than I wanted it to make my point, because I was still talking about your intro, and obviously good stuff we're talking about, but like
Yeah, it's a good point. You've made a lot of good points en
you
route.
mentioned you mentioned having a leg blown off or missing a leg and then
Yeah.
getting denied.
Yeah.
I mean,
Have you seen that? Is that a real thing?
not the leg itself,
Okay.
but let me tell you an example of something that just happened, and
Oh boy.
I mean, it infuriated me to no end. I
Hmm.
mean, we got it sorted out, but okay, so um, without getting into too many specifics, but the veteran was on a naval ship during um, the Persian Gulf War in
Hmm.
1991. Was out there
Yep.
starting in 1990, sent to the Persian Gulf. Was on one of the main ships that came in. Was firing missiles. You know, enemy planes coming. They had all kinds of um, instances where um, they had to go to general quarters because there were bomb sirens going off and all this stuff. Okay, so and this is a PTSD claim. So um, one of the main things that separates PTSD from like any other condition is the stressor. You need a stressor.
Mm-hmm.
Stressor has to be something that happened that made you fearful for your life, right? That's kind of the big your or somebody else's. That's
I'm
and I'm
pretty sure that
paraphrasing.
Persian Gulf offensive
Yeah,
would check that box.
exactly. So so the guys on the ship, I mean, it's super clear he was there.
Hmm.
Um, well, he files for PTSD like almost immediately out of getting out of the service.
Hmm.
So he goes for an exam. The examiner says, yep, PTSD, yep, related to um, his military service in the Persian Gulf. Sounds like exactly what you would want to see for a PTSD exam. I mean, checks all
Yep.
the boxes.
Hmm.
Except then it goes back to um, someone at the VA, because the doctors give their opinion, but it's a VA rating specialist that
Hmm.
interprets that opinion and then applies it to the law to see what benefits are out there, or what or they qualify for. So rating specialist gets it and says, "Oh no, you were on the ship, but you went home before the actual war started, because they found." And here's what they're using. The veteran got a sea service medal of some sort, and I don't remember what it was exactly called, but there was a sea service medal, which you get when you serve on a ship that's
Right.
out to sea. Like, that's what it's for. Well, on the sea service medal, it must have been awarded before his service was over, because it says dates of sea service from June of '89 till August of '90.
Hmm.
Before the ship made it into. However, if you looked at the next page, you will see the actual orders that show he was actually on this ship until 1991, and then sent back to Virginia 1991, like
Wow.
August. The offensive started January 15th, which is it's weird that I remember that day, but it was my birthday, and that was
Yeah.
that was the date they gave as the date, like Saddam had to leave Kuwait or we're coming, basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and true to form, we came because he didn't leave. So, but it was very weird because I was 11 years old and it was on my birthday, and I thought, wow, this is a weird birthday, because I spent my birthday
Yeah.
watching CNN. Watching CNN. That was
Yeah.
like the first war that you could watch happen in real time. But anyways,
Yeah.
that
Oh,
kind
weird.
of aside. But so if they would have went to the next
So they
page, they would
denied the claim because
they
of that?
denied the claim. They denied the claim. Okay. So the guy says, "Oh, okay, I guess I don't qualify." Comes back to us in like 2019. Okay, so this was like 1992, 1993 that this first happened.
Yeah. So almost 30 years later.
Yeah, comes back to us, gets another exam. Examiner again says, yeah, related to the Persian Gulf service.
Hmm.
Which, by the way, he's got a Persian Gulf service medal as well.
Right.
On top of the sea service medal. But they say, oh, that must have been given an error because you were not in the Persian Gulf during the right time. They say it again. again. So
He's like, man,
so
could have fooled me.
yeah. So what ends up happening, I actually I do what's called a higher level review because that's available
Mhm.
to us now.
Mhm.
Never was before. Higher level review is a chance for us to have a 10-minute phone call with a decision maker and point out the very easy errors, like if it's
Right.
a legal error, a misinterpretation error,
Mhm.
and there's enough in there to approve the claim without any additional evidence.
Mm.
We'll do those from time to time. So I file a higher level review with a conference, and I point out like the exact page numbers in the file.
Mhm.
Okay, go to here. You'll see here's the service medal. You see they have these dates. Go to the next page. It actually has his orders, shows he was there, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
Get that back, and they frickin' denied it again. The guy basically, word for word, wrote the exact same decision, just copied and pasted it from the first decision.
Was
And
he
I
just
am
not
like,
even listening to you?
I am livid. I mean, this guy, this veteran that I'm dealing with, he got 100%. He's struggling. He was
Mhm.
homeless. He was, I mean, everything that you hear about veterans, he had those problems, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
you know,
Understandably, I mean, he
yeah,
had
exactly. I
trauma.
mean, he's having terrible mental health. Can't get help. Can't get anything, any money to like get into a some sort of housing, and
Mm.
and I have to call these people and tell them what happens, right? Like, and I, it's like the worst phone call in the world to
Mm.
have this person that is so clearly eligible and needs it so much and is like sort of the definition of what this program was designed for,
Right.
and to call and say, yeah, they denied you again. So
Is that the end of the road for him, or are you able to
no,
keep
no, no,
fighting?
we ended up winning.
Oh,
What we had,
good.
yeah. So what I ended up doing, and I could have taken it up to the Board of Veterans Appeals, but that would take too long. Like, he needed
Mm.
his benefits.
Right.
If you're going to Board of Veterans Appeals, you're looking at a year to 2 years before you get a decision.
Wow.
So what I did was I literally printed out the file that they already have,
Mhm.
submitted it with what's called a supplemental claim.
Mhm.
Supplemental claim is where you're supposed to submit um, new evidence,
Mhm.
and they'll re-adjudicate the case.
In an
This,
expedited fashion?
not expedited, but it's way quicker than the appeal process. So
Okay.
like, um, so I literally printed out the file from their file. Like I logged into their system, printed the
Mhm.
file out, and
Mhm.
just submitted it with a supplemental claim, which I wasn't for sure they would even accept the claim because it was not new evidence. It's evidence that they already have. Like, I many times a supplemental claim will be rejected without new and relevant evidence. So I was like, I don't know, I'm going to try this. If we get a rejection, it'll be quick at least, so we'll know that it doesn't work. But
And it worked?
it did work, even though it wasn't new evidence. I took my highlighter and I'm like highlighting, pointing arrows, see this, see that, like,
Yeah.
writing stars and circles around where what they have to
Mhm.
read.
Mhm.
And finally, after 20 or 30 years, he got his benefits. And
Wow.
I'm still working because I believe he was a clear and unmistakable error case, which,
So he would technically be owed back pay?
yes, like if you can find a clear and unmistakable error
Mhm.
where the legal standard is very difficult to prove, but if you can find one, then there's no statute of limitations, and the back pay goes back to when that error was made, assuming it affects
30
you.
years of 100% disability
Yes,
ago.
it should be. So
So he probably would not need to worry about money for the most part.
yeah, no, he'd be
And
good.
yeah.
And it doesn't make up for lost time though, right? Like, I've
Right.
had
It
plenty of
does
vets
not.
where you give them their $200,000 in back pay or whatever, and they say,
Mhm.
okay, well, this is great, but I suffered for 20 years living on the
Yeah.
street,
Mhm.
mental health, whatever it might be.
It's
And
hardly recompense. So
no, right, yeah,
that is obviously a nightmare scenario. Let's back up a little bit because the two things that I wanna make sure that we cover are What is the best way to submit in the first place to make sure that, to avoid or to reduce the risk of being in a nightmare scenario? And then I want to get into, if you're denied, what are the best ways to move forward? Um, so let's start. Like, how would you advise? Like, let's say I think I have a disability claim on my hands. Should I just file it myself? Should I go to a VSO? Should I go to a legal entity? Should I
Yeah.
have my best friend's cousin's uncle do it? Like, what is the best way to do it from the word go if I haven't submitted a claim before?
So my recommendation is VSO.
100%
Um,
agreed.
I love the VSOs. I really like the county guys. Every county has a veteran
Mhm.
office.
Mhm.
I've worked with Milwaukee. I've worked with Waukesha. I've worked with Racine, Kenosha, and some of the further out to Jefferson. But very good people. Very good
Mm.
people.
Mhm.
Um, very much, in tune with all the benefits that are available. Because I really only know the VA benefits. Federal.
Oop, I lost you for a second there. Oh, you're back. You still with me?
I think I lost you.
Having some technical issues. There you are. You're back. So sorry, you were saying technical issues. There you go.
Yeah. Um, a weird noise. Can you hear me?
Yeah, our audio got scrambled. Did you just start going through your car or something?
Uh, no. Well, someone called my phone. Which...
Oh, hey, go ahead and log off if you could and log back in, because we're having some audio disruptions here. Yep. But further to his point, while we're giving him an opportunity to log off and log back on, uh, always use a VSO from the onset. I personally used Texas Vet Commission. There are tons of organizations, and that was while I was still in. And they submitted the claim on my behalf, and it was basically I went in with my big lump of, health records, and the lady asked me a few questions, and she just hummed herself a tune and went page by page and started writing some stuff down. And they know the language of the VA. It is a separate language, and you can do a submission. You can do a submission yourself. I just wouldn't recommend it because you don't understand that language. And they know it. They know what a submission looks like. They know the ups and downs and how to do it the right way. And Jim, maybe you can expand upon that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I do want to say that this vet did it the right way. He had a VSO.
Mm-hmm.
The VSO got his military personnel file, sent it in for him. Um, the one thing that's um, at least what had happened to him is he got his denial letter. He didn't follow up.
Right.
Like as an attorney, if I get a denial letter, like I am on their butts to get what we need before the deadline to appeal because that's my job. They're hiring me. If I win, they pay me to do this. The
But he,
VSO,
like so many other veterans, got the denial and said, "Okay, I guess that's
yeah.
it."
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he did it right, and the VSOs are really great. And what I was trying to get at is they know the VA benefits, but they also know local benefits.
Right.
So like, let's say you're a veteran and you're applying for the first time and you're homeless. Well, regardless of what happens, it's going to take several months for your claim. Even though you're homeless, they'll expedite it. There's just no way around it because they have to request your military records. They have to do all this
Right.
stuff, and it's very unlikely that you can submit what's called a fully developed claim if you have all the evidence, but it's very unlikely that you have all the evidence. Um, so what they can do is not only file your VA claim, but they can help you get connected with other local benefits, which are or organizations or charities or
Hmm.
whatever. Which here in Milwaukee area, southeastern Wisconsin, we are really blessed with
That's
uh,
not.
some amazing, yes, VetsNet to
Mhm.
find resources, and the resources that are available are really good if you go out and use
Yep.
them. So
Milwaukee Homeless Veterans Initiative is another one. VetsNet takes care of immediate needs. If you have
yeah,
a right now need,
yeah,
and so organizations like that fill the gap when it is inevitable that the VA is going to take some time. Like I said, it's a big machine.
yeah,
And it's, and I should clarify that, doing it the right way, you could do everything right and it could still be a nightmare scenario. We're just trying to reduce the
yes,
risk of that happening. But I will say, a very low percentage of people who I know who have hand filed their claims themselves without the assistance of a VSO, their success rate is much, much lower
for sure.
than the folks who use a VSO.
And to sort of piggyback on that point, it even is the same when you're looking at the vets that file prior to discharge, because prior to discharge you can actually file for your just file for everything that you want to for the VA, and they'll send you to an exam. And because you're still in the service, anything that they diagnose is going to be service connected, assuming it's not
Mhm.
service pre-existing or whatever, or congenital. Um, and a lot of times I see vets that have done that and they've gotten some things service connected, and they're content, but the VA missed a ton with those exams.
Right.
So I mean, it even goes back to, like, while you're still in the service, I highly recommend when you get out, even if you have those exams, to have them double checked. A lot of the attorneys, it would be an appeal situation, so attorneys will give you a free evaluation, and they can tell you whether there's anything there or not. And if you don't choose to use them, it's free. If you do, then if we or any other attorney win, then there's a cut of the back pay that comes as our fee. But or even a VSO, just somebody that knows what's going on, have them look at what happens. Because I'll tell you an example of what happened recently. I partnered up with one of these class action law firms that's handling the 3M earplug cases.
Okay.
And they have thousands of, and they're younger vets, just because the dates of
Right.
the 3M earplugs, we're not talking about Vietnam, Korea. We're talking about like Gulf War and,
Right.
the 90s and fairly recent. So it's all
Mhm.
younger guys with terrible hearing loss. So what I was doing is helping them with the VA piece of it. They've got a law firm that's suing 3M, and they're in there getting that done. But a lot of the guys had asked for someone to just check out their VA benefits. So I did. And I found, of the people that came my way, that weren't already 100%, because if you're already 100%, we really don't get involved.
Mm,
Uh, like, because of their age, they had this discharge exam, and that was something that they've been pushing since the 90s or whatever. Older vets didn't get this pre-discharge exam.
right.
So almost every case that I've taken on, and I've taken about 150 of these clients on, because I looked through their file and they were getting screwed by the VA. Well, what ended up happening was I took on these files, looked at their discharge exam, just told them to basically, um, it's not an appeal at that point because it's more than a year, but to file a supplemental claim on almost every issue in the discharge exam. And these people went from like 0 to 50 or 0 to 100
Which is
without it,
huge.
without any work. We
Yep.
didn't even get back pay because it was such an easy claim. And here they were sitting there. They could have been getting it since they got out of service, if they
Yeah.
would have just taken or had someone that was willing to take a look and give them advice on what the VA screwed up.
And not just give up when it's denied. So I think
Well,
that's,
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
exactly. I was gonna say, like, they maybe had a 10 or a 20%, and they were like, "Oh, okay, great.
Fine
I'm
with
gonna get
it.
a couple
Yeah.
$100 a month. This is amazing." But
When
then,
they are legally eligible for more and
yeah,
they are deserving of of more or different or advanced forms
Yeah.
of benefit. So
Yep,
we've co-
exactly.
we've covered the from the onset. Use a VSO, use a county
Yeah.
VSO, use a local American Legion. And when I say VSO, Veteran Services Officer, someone who is certified to file claims on a veteran's behalf. Those are the VSOs. There's county, there's American Legion, VFW, Disabled American Veterans, Vietnam Veterans of America, Blinded Veterans of America. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
handful of them, and they are all great, and they do great work nationally and in support of veteran benefit claims and whatnot. Do not, from the onset, if anyone anywhere throughout this process charges money for, like, says, pay me $500 and I'll submit your claim. Uh, those are big red flags. It's actually illegal to charge on the front end for something like that. So that's a run for the hills thing. If you've had a claim denied, and I think Jim might have frozen here for a second, but if you have a claim denied, what do you do next? Well, we've already covered don't run for the hills. Um, let's see, Jim. If you want to go ahead and log out and log back on again. Joe says, I like your convo and content, but disagree. Maybe I'm odd one here, but you don't need to start with any third parties to have a positive experience with the VA. It's not impossible. Yeah, I would have gone with VSOs, but I did my stuff completely alone, no choice during the pandemic. A lot of people did. Zero roadblocks. Further, my claims didn't take long either, about a month. Wow, that's incredible. I personally don't recommend looking for third parties unless it's dire. These folks are predatory. VSOs are not predatory. So I agree. I think a lot of people had to submit on their own during the pandemic. Those processes were a little bit different. The fact that it took a month and you got your claim processed is a small miracle, and it's not impossible. Like I said, there are people who will file it on their own and just fine. That is very rare. Like, your situation is very rare. And you said, I recommend don't looking for a third party unless it's dire. They're predatory. That is inaccurate. I appreciate your comment, but that's inaccurate. VSOs, Veteran Services Offices, they don't charge for that. You go to a VSO, they help you, they submit the claim on your behalf, and you don't pay them. I mean, they exist to help you submit your claim. So the recommendation that you don't go to a VSO unless it's dire, you're really taking your life in your hands, and you're potentially wasting a lot of time. If you want the least chance of something getting denied for, okay, all right, he clarified, not VSO. They are awesome. Okay, but let's talk about the next one. The next comment, though, because there is nothing whatsoever predatory about what Jim does. Like, Jim works for a legal firm that represents veterans who are in dire situations. If you were listening, you heard the story about the guy who was homeless and couldn't get the support he needed, though he deserved it. Jim doesn't get paid on the front end. Obviously, his time and insights are exceptionally valuable, and his legal mind and his, is exceptionally valuable. They don't get someone in his situation, in a third party that can represent a non-VSO, a legal entity, only gets paid if and when you win. And you win, and that comes out of your back pay, stuff that you wouldn't have gotten at all. And so I take great exception to the word predatory, because this is a selfless guy who works tirelessly to help veterans who are in crappy situations. So while you were rugged there for a second, I was handling a comment. Respect the comment, respect the feedback. And there
Yeah,
are
I actually saw the comment, and I actually I don't mind that comment. I'd like to respond if
okay.
I could. Yeah.
I was rushing to your defense, but there are predatory actors out there. So
There's
okay,
predatory anything you do, there's predatory people out there.
I'll bring the
Um,
comment back up while you're talking here, because
yeah, no, and I will tell you, and I I'm so happy for Joseph that he had such a great experience. You know what? 99% of the vets do have a fine experience with the VA. Maybe not 99. I don't know the exact number, but they help a lot of people. And I've said that a million times. If I've actually been asked to be on news stations to talk about the VA, and it ends up them wanting me to just sit there and just bash the VA,
Right. Right.
and I don't, and then they don't ask me back. So, so there's that. But I'm
They
not
want a
exciting
story.
enough. But you
Yeah,
know,
they aren't the bad guys. Like my VA experience has been amazing. Like my VA healthcare is spectacular. I know there are
yeah,
some people who have, there's varying degrees of success or whatever. And my
yeah,
VA experience overarchingly, especially through my initial claim with the VSO, just fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I talk to people all the time, and you know what? If someone has a claim like that, I'm not getting paid on an easy claim. I don't really have time or want
Mm.
those cases. I used to do them just because I had time, and I would just not get a fee, and I chalked it up to, like, helping someone that
Right.
needed it. But
Yeah.
now I can't do that. It's not fair to my clients that really, really need the help and need my,
Right.
my work on the case. Um, so I will tell you, I have VSOs that send me cases,
Right.
because they get to a point where they've done all they can do. And the system is what it is, right? Like, there's certain things that just, if you're not a lawyer, you can't do. You can't take it into the court
Right.
once you've had a final decision from BVA, unless you're a lawyer. Um, Sometimes the only thing that's lacking is a scientific or medical opinion that can cost anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 to obtain.
Which would be
Um,
impossible for many people who are in
Many
a
vets, yes,
needing situation.
and we analyze the case and see it, like, hey, like, I think if we can just get an opinion, and we've cultivated this network of um, doctors, physicians, scientists, anything you can imagine that is qualified to give an expert opinion. We've cultivated a group that we can go out to and say, hey, look at this case. Can you make a positive association
Mm.
that can help this vet get the benefits? And if they do, we front that money with the complete understanding that should we lose, we eat that cost,
Mhm.
which doesn't happen often because at the time that we're looking to pay for an opinion, we've worked the case up to the point that we're fairly certain that if we got an
Right.
opinion, it's going to win. So, um, and I hear that all the time. And there are predatory people and predatory groups out there. In fact, the VA just sent out a PACT Act um, notice about these non-accredited groups, which there's several.
Mm.
You see them, I'm sure, as a veteran, you see them on Facebook all the time.
Yeah.
Where they call themselves medical consultants rather than
Mm.
actual representatives, and they're going to take anywhere from 40% of your back pay to 1 year worth of payments, or something. They'll have some
Woof.
crazy, yeah. And what they do is they just have these doctors on staff that'll just write you a note, basically, and that's what they do. And um,
Yikes.
yeah, so I actually had one that came our way, and um, just to give you an example of something that happened, I had one come our way. The guy had flat feet,
Mhm.
really bad flat feet, to the point where, like, ankles were messed up, just bunions and everything you could imagine
Mhm.
coming from Pez Planus. Well, um, they did a DBQ, a disability benefits questionnaire, for him
Mhm. Mhm.
without ever seeing him. They just filled it out for him, and then he sent it to the VA. And then the VA said, okay, you live in, this is what they said. They said, you live in Texas and this doctor's in, you know, Seattle. Did you go to him to get your
Mhm.
feet checked? You know, other than mental health, there's not really a lot of cases
Right.
where you
Right.
can just talk to someone and they can tell you how bad it is, right? Like, they need to see it, measure it, have you walk around, look at your limp, all these different things. Well, they didn't do that. They just were over a video, or I don't even know if they did a video. They basically just filled out the form, sent it in, and the VA was so upset with this form. Not only did they take away, or did they not give him the 50% that he was looking for, they took away his 30% that he had for flat fee, and dropped him down to zero. And
Yikes.
said we're not going to give it back until you get an either come in or give us
Like
an
a
actual
real
like
opinion.
yeah.
So I
So
think
he
that's a
can't do it.
really valid question. So that's a great example of predatory actors who are trying to take advantage of the using the PACT Act as a cash cow and basically saying like, we'll write you a thing that says
Yeah,
that you are this if you give us a portion, whether it's true
right.
or not. How does somebody, so let's say I have filed a claim, I used a VSO or not, let's say I did. It was denied. I don't know what to do next. They suggest that I talk to a next level person, a legal entity, or something. How do I know that they are accredited and someone like you and not someone like Seattle Foot Doctor?
Yeah, so there is the OGC website, the General Counsel has an updated list of all accredited VSOs and representatives. You can search by last name, you can search by location. I mean, it can help you find one, and it can help you double check that the person's accredited.
Excellent.
As an accredited rep, certain things are required. Passing character and fitness exams, and um, having legal malpractice insurance, and kind of all these different things that are required. Um, and it should give the person who's using them some sort of comfort level with the fact that,
Mm-hmm.
number one, they're going to do a good job. Number two, if they don't do a good job, there's a recourse, right? Like,
Right.
because does every accredited rep do a good job? I mean, probably not, right? Like,
Right.
that's just
Yeah.
there's again, you're dealing with humans and a system that's kind of crazy, and I'm sure that there are some that you wouldn't want to use, but the accredited rep site is there. It's a way to make sure that the person has made it through the VA's system of checks and balances, and we have to keep up with a certain level of continuing education, to make sure
Mm.
that what we know is not out of date as
Yeah.
we're working these cases. So,
Well, that's
um,
good. And we
yeah,
talked earlier about how and I have the website across the bottom, or if you just Google search VA OGC or VA accredited representation accredit, that's good. That's what's going to pop up. Um,
can I just say one more thing, Adam?
Mhm.
One thing
Yeah.
that can make you skeptical, or should make you skeptical, is if an organization right now, and this is what people are getting at with the PACT Act and
Mhm.
fraud. Um, so what ends up happening is there's all these new presumptives, right?
Yeah.
Like, and for those of you that don't know, a presumptive means the VA has made the determination that there's a positive association to your service, such that when you file it, as long as you can prove you were in the spot where the exposure happened, you don't need a medical opinion to link them.
You just
Every
get the
other case,
claim.
yeah, you just get
Yeah.
it. So like, um, you know, burn pits, and I think brain cancer is one of the new ones. Like, here's when you should be really skeptical, is if someone is trying to get you to file for one of your presumptives, right? Like, because you're going to file and win, there's going to be no work, no chance for the veteran, or there's really going to be nothing for the rep to do other than have a piece of paper that files the
Mhm.
claim. Those are the ones when you really just, and it's the same for Agent Orange. And anytime someone's,
Right.
now, I've had clients where I'm working another case and I see that they missed something, and I file it for them and they win. And, and then I waive my fee on that stuff sometimes, or I don't even get a fee because it's a
Mhm.
new claim, or, um, you know, but if someone is specifically saying, "Hey, you were over and you were by burn pits, and you should file for all of this," you don't need help with that. All you need to do is either do it yourself or get a VSO. So that's one of the areas where, um, people are very nervous with the PACT Act, because there's these claims that you're just going to get that
Right.
a bad actor could get a fee on for no reason.
Right.
So that's something I would
Yeah.
look for.
Oh yeah. So if you have something that's why you should go to a VSO first.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Because they can easily, and I just threw a link, they can easily file, a VSO can easily file a PACT Act related presumptive and get that claim situated for you. So anybody
Exactly.
saying that, that they'll do their service for a cut is a red flag run for the hills.
That's right. Now there is a
Okay.
caveat, right?
Okay.
Number one, you filed, got denied. That might be a different story.
Hmm.
Or number two, you filed, got approved, but aren't happy with the percentage you got.
Right.
Um, those sometimes there are something that attorneys can do, um, to help get your benefits to where they're supposed to be. But
Hmm.
if it's like you're just filing for it to get service connected, absolutely not. You do not need a rep for that, or
Right.
you don't need a paid rep. A VSO, I would do a VSO every
That's
time,
good
just because
advice.
the paperwork is complicated.
Yeah, it's the language of the VA thing. Um, I,
Yes.
I want to make sure that we cover a couple of these questions here because I wanted to stay under an hour, but I feel like we could talk for,
Yeah. No, it's
maybe
so
we should
easy
do a
to
separate
go
one
on.
on PACT Act. That might be good.
Sure.
Um, but Jared asked, how would you go about writing a letter explaining how getting diabetes after service would be service connected? Would the advice be you don't write that letter on your own behalf?
No, that's not exactly right. The advice
Okay.
would be to diabetes is one of these that early in my career I said no, there's no way to do it. How are you going to prove now you've got diabetes? 30 years after service, you were diagnosed, but in the service you didn't have it, right? Here's what I've talked to doctors. I've had doctors actually do workups of my files and bring this to light to me. And here's what I've been doing, and I love it, and it's been working really well.
Hmm.
Um, but what I tell people to do, and this is making an assumption, and also I'm
Okay.
my weight's not where I would like it to be. So when I talk about being overweight, I'm not judging or anything, but like you know what ends up
Hmm.
happening to a lot of vets and a lot of people that are disabled is all of a sudden you're physically unable to do the things you want to do, which takes a mental toll, which when you have to make a choice of are you going to eat McDonald's or a salad, the mental toll can be difficult to make the right choice. Well, what I can usually prove, if there are physical and or mental disabilities
Hmm.
that significantly affect their life, is that number one, they can't exercise, which makes it harder to keep their weight off. And so I'm assuming that the diabetes is related to weight gain, which, by the way, this is the same analysis for sleep apnea.
Right.
Um, so you have your weight gain, over the course of however many years,
Due to a
um,
service-connected
due to
injury.
a service-connected injury. So the weight
Mhm.
gain is kind of this middleman. Weight gain itself is not a condition
Mhm.
that is compensable, but it can be service-related to the point that it leads to other things,
Mm.
whether it be diabetes, sleep apnea, high blood pressure, stroke, kind of all of the obesity-related things that we know are out there.
Mm.
So that's what I talk about. Is I talk about the symptoms that you're suffering and why they are contributing to your inability to lose weight or contributing to the weight you've gained. If
Right.
you've got bad back, okay, I used to be able to work out, lift weights. I used to swim. I used to play basketball. Now I can't do any of
Mm.
that. So I sit on my couch and I read a book or I watch TV or, I had one guy who had leg problems and he left his job as a district manager at a supermarket.
Mhm.
So he was on his feet all the time, lifting heavy boxes, pretty physically fit, walking miles and miles per day through all the different supermarkets. Well, and by
But
the way,
he left that job due to a service-connected
yeah,
injury?
and
Okay,
by the way, making six figures in the '80s. So like,
which is good.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like $1 million now or something. I don't even
Yeah.
know, but
It's a lot.
so he leaves his job, gets a job with a cab company because he can't be on his feet, drives
Gains a ton of
cabs,
weight.
gains a ton of weight. I mean, like 200 pounds up into like the 350, 400 range.
Man.
Gets sleep apnea, gets diabetes, heart condition,
So
bad
those are
eye.
secondarily connected to the like they are a result of something that's as a result of a service connected thing, so therefore provable.
It is provable. Now, does the VA roll over on those? Usually not. Sometimes, but usually not. What ends up normally happening is we have those cases and we have to send
Mm,
them for a pretty in-depth medical analysis with
mhm.
opinion,
Yeah,
um, because a lot of people have diabetes, right? Like it's something that they don't want to open the floodgates on that. They
right.
sort of did with the Agent Orange thing because Agent Orange and diabetes are related, but if they
Mm-hmm.
just start saying, yeah, diabetes is related to if you're physically disabled, diabetes and sleep apnea, those are pretty high percentage. Like, I mean, the disability percentage you get is pretty high. 50 for
Right.
sleep apnea if you
Mhm.
have a
If you use a
CPAP,
CPAP, yeah.
usually like 40 for or 20 for diabetes if you have insulin, but then also if you have if you have peripheral neuropathy in the hands, legs,
Mm,
feet, eyes, kidneys, all that stuff can be rated. Heart conditions then can be rated.
mhm.
So they usually want a medical before we win. We usually have to get a pretty in-depth and expensive medical opinion to link that.
Yeah.
However, I would try it first to see because you know you might be that one out of 100 that
You
sneaks
never know.
through, and you
So
don't have
would
to.
you
Yeah.
suggest he file that through his appeal or his letter through a VSO
Yes, I would.
always?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would
And
let the
then
VSO read your letter first too, just to make sure
mhm.
you're not saying something that hurts your case.
What if he doesn't have anything right now that is currently service connected? Does he have a pretty tough road ahead of him to get this proven?
Pretty tough unless some sort of symptom in service, like
Yeah.
he found they had an elevated blood sugar test, or
Mm,
the weight gain began in service.
right.
um, you know
Interesting.
there's really not a lot if it's unless it's within a year of service. If it's within a year of
Yeah.
discharge, you got a little more of an easier road. But if it's like the example I said before, where nothing's service connected, but you're 30 years down the road, that's going to be difficult,
Right.
unless
And that's
something
why
is
we
service.
suggest, even if you feel injured right now, file the stinking claim.
Oh my gosh, here's I know we're going to get close to an hour, but
No, that's
another
fine.
piece of advice. When I worked at the VA, the VSOs would encourage people to file every
Oh,
claim.
here's some clarification. He already has percentage for sleep apnea and my knees.
There you go.
Write the letter and connect those to your diabetes because sleep apnea is connected to depression, which can be connected to weight gain. Sleep apnea can be connected to weight gain. Your knees prevent you from working out, which can be connected to weight gain. There are a lot of things that you can connect there. I'm sorry. That's your specialty.
No, you're
Am
right.
I okay?
Well, and the knees can also contribute to depression if you start to think about if you're not disabled and you think about what it would be like to be disabled. Um,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I have, maybe I think about this more than the average person just because of, you
Right.
know,
Mm-hmm.
between Social
Because of
Security and
the
VA,
nature of your work and
we have thousands of clients. Yeah, I hear about it
mhm.
all the time. And, I start to think about, okay, talk to these guys, love playing basketball with their buddies, can't play basketball anymore. Love going hunting, can't go walk through the woods anymore. Like you take away someone's uh, leisure activity that they just love and they can't do it anymore, that's significant and is very difficult mentally to deal with. So I would totally recommend, like you said, the sleep apnea could contribute to depression, which could contribute to weight gain. Knees contribute to that. Um, and then it's just it's
Yeah.
for you, it's going to have to be a secondary condition unless you had something in service. And I think you've got a good chance based on what you're connected for.
And if Jared, and obviously this is not legal advice, this is our disclaimer, not legal, not financial
Yeah.
advice. If you want to talk with Jim, I will put his link. I have used him personally, Tabak Attorneys, doodly-doo. He works with Tabak Attorneys, Tabak Law. I'm going to put that link right here. I do not get a cut or anything. This is me just sharing information about a good resource, tabakattorneys.com. I have one more question I want to get to. So, yeah, Jared, don't give up. All right, the next question is from Greg. He says, I've done an initial and supplemental for an ankle injury that was done on post during a PT session. Went to a civilian doctor, and the related doctor's reports don't say that the injury was done during military training. I was denied on the supplemental, even though I went back and got sworn statements that I was present. Should I continue to pursue, or am I just out of luck?
So a couple of things I would need to know. Number one, definitely pursue always. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Oh, he said, he clarified he meant appeal, not supplemental. He did an initial
and then
submission and then an appeal for an ankle injury.
I got you. Okay. So questions I have, was there treatment in the service? Um, how long after service was it diagnosed and reported? Do you have anyone you could talk to that knew you when you were in the service and know you now that could, corroborate the fact that your ankle was messed up? It wasn't messed up when you got in the service, and then it was when you got out. Um, it's there's three pieces to every puzzle in the VA. There's the in-service event, there's the current disability, and then there's the medical nexus, which is the opinion that the current disability is related to the in-service event. So the question is, why was the denial? Was it because they couldn't verify an in-service event, or was it because they went and got a medical opinion and the medical opinion said it's not related? Those are the questions I would have before I could give any sort of opinion on the case.
Right on. Yeah, but so the advice is don't give up. He said everything was immediate. Had surgery. You had surgery for your ankle while you were in the military, like it happened during PT. And the issue is that they say there is a disability, but they say it's not service connected. So you're saying you injured your ankle during a PT session, like while in the service, and you had surgery on that. I feel like there's something missing in there, like that would have to be service connected, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. The question is, how, when you say immediate, like immediate after.
Like, did you have surgery, Greg, while you were still in the service? Let's see what he has to say.
I have seen
Correct.
this before, though.
He says correct. Okay, and the surgery was done at a civilian doctor, or was that done on base? The initial. Okay, so it was a civilian. Okay, and the surgery was done at the civilian doctor. Okay, so he got it treated at a civilian doctor while he was still in the service, and it doesn't mention that it happened during military training.
Was he active or reserve at the time of the injury?
Good question. It was a civilian doctor who didn't say in the report that it was military related. He's guard.
So that's the tough one.
He's full time, so AGR, active guard reserve.
Oh, okay. So
he's in the National Guard, but on active orders.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. If you're on active duty at the time of, and when I say that doesn't make sense, the VA does a lot of things that don't make sense. So that's not.
It's a weird concept because
Yeah.
when you are in the National Guard, your higher power is the state, right? You're not the federal.
Well,
but you can be on active duty orders while part of the Guard.
That's correct. So National Guard is something where, if you're on active orders, they look to who ordered those orders. I said order a lot.
Who ordered the orders? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is the orderer?
For example, like let's say there's a flood and your governor calls calls it an emergency, and you go out and you help people with the flood. If it's not picked up by the federal government, then that's a state service and you're not eligible for federal benefits. But if you're on active duty because,
Mm.
you know, the federal government called you up for whatever reason, whether you're sent over somewhere or they just need you for something related to what, and the federal government asked for it, then you are eligible for federal benefits. Now, what ends up happening 99.9% of the time is that when a governor declares a state of emergency and then asks for the National Guard, the federal government will say, yes, we agree, and we allow our people to
Yeah.
do this under our name, and then there's no issue. But it could
It
happen.
sounds like he's already getting, let me see. Greg, are you already getting any sort of service connected federal benefit right now? Like, do you have like a 10% rating for something else or whatever? Because that I think will be the differentiator, right? Because let's see, probably too much for this conversation, but mine were a bit. I was on 32 ADOS for 17 years. Yeah, this is probably a deeper conversation, but the bottom line is, don't give up and talk to somebody. If and the first step is always a VSO, and if it is outside of their purview or if they're not able to help you, do not be
Yeah.
hesitant to use. Oh, he's rated 10% for tinnitus, it says, but
Okay.
it's a federal benefit.
So it should be if the medical um, form or the diagnosis or the surgery report, if it happens and the dates are during your active service, that should be service connected because
Yeah.
as an active duty service member, it doesn't matter how you injure yourself. You're considered on active duty 24 hours a day. The one caveat is if there's willful misconduct involved, such as, you get drunk and do something stupid and, then it might be. But if it's just, you had an injury and then you went and got treated outside of the military and you've got the records that show this is the date I was on active duty service that date, that injury should be service related. Now, I have seen where they say, "Oh, you had your surgery and then you served for 15 more years and didn't complain about it even once for the next 15 years." And now 10 years after that, you're coming and saying now that same body part hurts.
Hmm.
I have seen them say that there's been no continuity of symptoms or treatment, and that
Interesting.
that actual body part that just happens to be the same thing you had surgery on in the service, that new pain is a new pain, not related to what happened in the service.
He said,
Right?
Craig said, I wasn't drunk at PT that day. Well, good.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, no, I didn't think you were. I just there's always an exception to every
Right.
rule, right? Like, and
He
that's
only
the reason.
says that because that's happened before, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. I get it
Yeah.
all the time. You
Um,
know.
I feel like we could talk for hours, but I need to move us on today. Do
Yeah.
you want to do the PACT Act again sometime soon?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I
Okay.
mean, the PACT Act is, it's amazing
Mm,
because it combined, and I know we got to go, but there's three different pieces to it that got combined into one: the burn
mm,
pits, the Camp Lejeune, and the Agent Orange. And
yeah.
those were three separate things happening, and they pulled them all together and pushed it through, and it was amazing.
Yeah. That's yeah, and we got to thank our VSOs fighting at a national level to help push that
Absolutely.
legislation
The
through. Huge,
IAVA, I don't know if you guys know of them, the Iraq Afghani Veterans Association took the lead on that and killed it. Like,
huge
biggest,
legislative win. Yeah.
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. So it was exciting.
Good stuff. Well, I appreciate your insights. Hang on the line here for just 1 minute. Friends, there it is. I mean, just a ton of valuable information. And you heard it. Jim and I are going to do this again. We're going to cover the PACT Act. But in the meantime, if you want to ask him, start the process, first of all, always file. Don't be afraid to not give up. Always use a VSO from the onset. And then if you need more firepower, bring in a guy like Jim and Tabak Attorneys. And again, I'm not on that. They're not paying me for this. He's a friend of mine and he does great work. So, friends, I appreciate you tuning in for this long one. And please share with your friends, share with your veteran friends. Get out there and yeah, file for everything too. Jim says he had it in the chat. File for everything. All right, friends. If you have any questions, hit me up on LinkedIn or YouTube. You know where to find me. See you next time.